I wanted to move back to something that we had discussed, and it dates back to perhaps the Roosevelt era, and has to do with a book by Wallace and Snedecor.
Oh, yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. Great for you. That's the early book on computation. You were always in the role of the computer in modern statistics. Well, hell, what is that? Where the origins of statistics and computing get together first? And this is a book by Wallace and Snedecor, 1923 or something like that. My birth year, or something, way the heck back there. And it's on the computational aspects of correlations or computational aspects of statistical correlation, some such title, by Wallace and Snedecor. This is George Snedecor, the Miss Cox's mentor and so on. Who is Wallace? Henry Wallace. Henry Wallace ended up Vice President of the United States.
Oh.
What do you want to hear about Henry Wallace? He was actually a geneticist. He rebuilt the family fortune by doing studies in corn genetics. And he picked up the interest in statistics, and he got to know Snedecor. And I guess Henry Wallace had to do lots and lots of hand computations. Remember, this is back in the days when we didn't even have a decent. And so Snedecor put this book together. And then later on, of course, he becomes vice president. I was in New York City, I can tell you this story, when Harry Truman was nominated to be vice president in the election of 1944. And I was interested in politics in those days, and I lived close to New York City. I went into New York City sometime that afternoon, and the crowd's outside of Madison Square Garden, and you get a ticket to get in and so on. Uh-huh. And we're sitting there, and Harry Truman is the nominee for vice president in 1944. Henry Wallace is the nominee. It is the vice president. You know, the body politics. They didn't want Henry to be vice president. And everybody sort of, well, anyway. And so we're all sitting there. And here comes Harry Truman, the vice president proposal. And we all sit in the audience and we all start, Wallace in 48. See, Henry Wallace had this very liberal backing, and particularly strong in it. So we all chanted, Wallace in 48, Wallace in 48. And we kept it up and kept it up. And for the longest time, they wouldn't let Harry speak.
Oh, my.
It was really rude. And it's a terrible thing to do. But poor Harry Truman. And you could tell that crowd was they were really upset with Harry Truman. It wasn't his fault, but he was chosen. The Democratic Party wisdom or politicos picked him to be the vice president in place of Harry. And then the next thing, of course, the election comes. Harry's now president, and I think it's 36 days into the President Roosevelt's fourth term that he dies. And so I've got this picture. There's a picture of of Vice President Truman now, and Henry Wallace standing right next to him, waiting for the train that's bringing the coffin and so forth of the president to Washington. And you see these two gentlemen standing together. Oh. And you think, wow, what was going through both their minds in addition to Henry Wallace missed being president by a month.